Hey there, everybody. Steve the Amateur Historian, just fending off some. Oh, God. The dry eye, when the allergies come as well, is just. Oh, it's a pain in the ass. And the funny thing is, I don't really have outdoor allergies, I have indoor allergies. So being out here actually makes me feel better. Whatever. Anyway, how y'all doing? Hope you're doing well. Uh, so for today, this is another story I stumbled onto while trying to find, murder stories. And, I thought I found another one in this case, and then it realized probably wasn't. There would have had to have been a lot of strange goings-ons happening in order for this to have not gone down the way that they said it did. And I guess you could say the moral of the story I'm about to tell you is don't mess with people, because you never know, based on appearance alone, who's gonna bite back. So I'm not exactly sure where in the Portland area this happened. Newspaper articles, when they start, they say where it happened at: Portland, Salem, whatever. So this just said this happened in Portland. I don't know if this is east side, west side. I get kind of an east side vibe from the story. Don't know why. But to start things out, there was a couple. I'm having to look at the name. Kataras. I saw it spelled Kataras, but I have also seen it end with an RIS. So Kataris. They pretty much sound the same when I say them, so I guess it really doesn't matter that much. But this is a couple that lived together. It was Gladys and Tom Kataris. And Tom, I don't know if Gladys also did. She obviously visited from time to time, or else this story wouldn't have been able to happen. But Tom worked at a cafe in Portland. Doesn't say, just says it was a cafe in Portland. And their janitor was a guy named Phil Taylor. And again, somewhere along the line, she either worked there or visited. Nothing in the articles I read said that Gladys worked also at the cafe, so I'm guessing she just went there from time to time to visit her husband. But anyway, when she did go there, whatever means that may have been under, she immediately got the attention of Phil Taylor, the janitor. And he was actually fired probably sometime mid-February of 1930 from the establishment by Tom Kataris, because he was clearly making moves on his wife, and it was making Gladys very uncomfortable. So he was relieved, he was let go, he was gone. But he wasn't done. He proceeded to apparently ceaselessly harass Gladys. He called her by phone, he tried to get her to meet with him all the time. It's classic older time story of the men who just, no matter how many times you got, I guess it still applies today, but no matter how many times you get no screamed into your face, they keep going, they keep trying. And it's like, at first you're trying to be suave in whatever way you can, try to win them over, and then when they keep saying no, you eventually just get mad and vindictive and feel like something that's rightfully yours is being taken from you, so it's your job to take it back. We call that an element of toxic masculinity today, among many other things. So when the phone calls weren't working, Phil Taylor took it up another level. Phil Taylor, right around the start of start of April 1930, almost exactly 90 years to the day ago, he showed up at Gladys's home. Her husband Tom was gone at this time, and he literally kicked the door in, burst into the home, grabbed her and threw her to the ground, and Lord only knows what he was planning to do to her at this point. Thankfully, they had a lodger, or someone who was renting a room from them, who heard the commotion and came out of the room. The moment Phil Taylor saw that there was another person in the house, he turned and bailed. But as he ran out of the house, he screamed back at Gladys, essentially, "Don't tell your husband about this or I'll kill him." So Phil Taylor was working, excuse me, on a whole other level He was obviously vindictive. He was obviously very dangerous, or at least thought he was very dangerous. And Gladys, understandably, did not keep this assault a secret from her husband. She told him about it. And by April 7th, he, Tom Kataris, the husband, had actually contacted the police and asked them to provide him protection at the cafe he was working at because he was concerned. He thought, who knows, Phil Taylor could show up and kill him. So the authorities agree to help him. They send a patrolman out there to kind of be stationed, I think, like right outside the cafe to see if Phil Taylor showed up. Because being fired, there's no reason he should have really been showing up there. I mean, he might be showing up as a patron, but if you see him showing up after threatening an employee there's life, like, you're going to act as an officer of the law. But Phil Taylor never showed up. And so it seems like both of the Katarisi are genuinely frightened, genuinely worried. And it's April 7th. Phil Taylor never shows up at the cafe. And eventually the place gets closed down. The patrolman watching it, goes off about his business. And it seems the reason Phil Taylor never showed, if he even had the intent of showing up at the cafe that day, was he had probably other things planned. It's now the early morning hours of the following day. It's April 8th, 1930. And Tom has to wake up early for work, so it's around 6 a.m. Tom's already left, headed off to the cafe. Gladys is there alone. She's still sleeping, and she's rousted to an awakened state by some strange rattling sound. And it's happening. We are reaching the pinnacle of this story. Phil Taylor has become tired of the rejections, and he's going to take things to a whole new level. Because as Gladys Taylor awakens and starts looking around and trying to figure out what the sound is she hears, she realizes, albeit too late, that it's the sound of her upstairs bedroom window rattling. The window's being picked, and then the window flies open, and who comes in but Phil Taylor? And Gladys Kataris is there all by herself. What is she going to do? He climbs in through the window, stares her down, and essentially says words to the effect of, "I'll get you now." So as they say in the old days, Gladys has had it. She is done. You can only hope that she's just going to be, I hate to put it lightly, but you almost, if he's going to do something, hopefully it's just some kind of an assault and that he's not going to kill her. And he advances forth on her. There's nothing she can do to stop him at this point. And then, upon recognizing it as Phil Taylor, rather abruptly, Gladys Kataris reaches down under her pillow, pulls out a revolver, and shoots him in the forehead, and hits him again. He's bleeding out. He stumbles forward a few more feet and drops dead on the floor. And Gladys Kataris is just sitting there in bed with the gun, just like, almost like you'd think in like the old movies when someone's just killed someone for the first time in their life. It's just kind of, I'm sure she went into a state of shock, but she had a revolver hiding under her pillow that whole time. And why? Well, because she chose to tell her husband, Tom Kataris, about this threat that had been made against, well, even more his life than hers. And while he wanted police watching over him at work, he wanted Gladys to be able to protect herself at home. So he gave her his .32 revolver to keep close at hand in case something happened. And when that something happened, I gotta say, Gladys Kataris probably had no prior experience with guns. She's half awake. She's being rousted out of bed. She has to pull up a weapon that she's probably barely ever used in her life, if not never used in her life. She immediately pulls it out and gets like 2 perfect shots on this guy that broke into her home, planning on attacking her in some way or another, and just dropped dead. So fortunately, Phil Taylor did not get her now. And, she called the authorities. The authorities show up. The gun's sitting on the, probably the end table by the bed. Phil Taylor's still there, just, dead on the floor. And there's Gladys Kataris is still in a state of shock, but alive. And, of course, in the aftermath, they had to do an inquiry on the whole thing, and they decided not to bring her up on any kind of charges for shooting this guy. They felt that the shooting was justified, at least under the circumstances. And I was a little suspicious when I first looked into the story, because it did state that Phil Taylor was an African-American man. So when I hear the story about, this African-American guy broke into my house, what was I saying? They did say that Phil Taylor was an African-American guy, and so when I hear a story about, this black guy breaks into my house and so I shot him because he was going to attack me, that was kind of the first little piece of the story that I found. So on the outset, I was kind of like, this sounds a little suspicious. And then I dug a little deeper and found that this guy, regardless of race, was genuinely a creeper who was following her and threatening her life. But that was, that kind of swayed me from the story at first until I actually looked further into it, because there's lots of stories of, all throughout history, we all know it, of African-American people dying under mysterious circumstances. And, and some white person who was there says, they did this and I had to do it. And the authorities are like, well, she had to do what she had to do. And the book closes at that point. But fortunately, at least in this case, that was not the matter. What do you want, dog? What are you sniffing at? What are you sniffing at? What are you sniffing at? Come on. Oh, hello. So, yep. That's the story of Gladys Kataris. Badass who had to defend herself. She had to defend herself. And, I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit up my Patreon. She'll be getting 2% of those funds. You want that? You want dog money? And, as always, till next time, this has been Steve, the Amateur Historian. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.